It is a sunny morning in Italy. Welcome to Misano, everybody, for the GT4 European Series powered by RAFA Racing Club. And qualifying is underway here at Misano. Yesterday, free practice, pre-qualifying. They had the paid test on Thursday. So quite a lot of mileage has already been spent. Now, short, sharp 20-minute session. And Q1 is underway. With the first 10 minutes being for the Silver Cup cars, and then the Pro-Am and AMs have the road a little bit later on. David Addison and Joe Osborne trackside, revelling in air conditioning, whereas the teams, even at the early part of the day, are already feeling the heat, on a cloud in the sky, and temperatures, Joe, are just going to go up and up and up and up.
Yeah, we're already at 28 degrees and we're saying 35 degrees top temp here today, so the track is going to get very hot today. So teams want to get there early while the track's at its quickest. No tyre overruns in GT4, so that's why you're seeing cars weaving down the back straight, just trying to generate that tyre temp lead as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Now this circuit, 16 corners, it's a pretty flat lap. There's a little bit of an incline maybe going up to turn 10, but the part of the circuit you're looking at there, turns 11, 12, 13, 14, you keep turning right, but every right is tighter than the one before, and you go from a kink all the way around to a hairpin.
Yeah, do you call it three corners, or is it one tightening radius? And it is very difficult because of that tightening nature. You want to carry momentum, but you see a lot of cars overshooting T14 as they've carried too much speed through the previous two corners. Teams on the pit wall looking at those timing screens as we get that great drone shot showing the very flat nature of this Misano circuit.
It's very popular for motorbikes, very popular for trucks, and the nature of the circuit also means that you kind of run late into the evening. So we have, for the GT3 cars, a race under the lights at the end of today, finishing at 9:30 local time. That is the section of the circuit known as the Curva del Rio, in other words, turns 5 and 6. And again, that's effectively two corners, but it is one long radius. Number 3 Audi then, of the championship leaders in silver, Benjamin Lariche and Robert Consani. They've been double winners this year. Remember, they had victories at Paul Ricard. They won again at Zandvoort. And they got a second and a third at Spa, that second Spa race being, of course, a somewhat truncated one with that big accident, the red flag, and then a shorter resumption, but at least they got some points. Now, are we looking at times to be set very early on before it gets warm? In other words, your first push lap is pretty much it?
It could possibly be, and I think sub 1:40 should be good enough for the front row pole last year, 39.7. So keep an eye for those overall times. At the moment, we only have the silver cars out, so 17 cars on track. And then in 6.5 minutes, they will have to come in, and we'll swap for the Pro-Am and AM cars as we see the Audi now coming towards the end of the lap. So important not to do track limits on the exit here. Nice and clean as he pushes to the line. This is going to be our first representative lap time as the Audi crosses the line, and it's going to post us a 1:43. So that wasn't a full push lap.
No, it's a start-up lap, isn't it, for Benjamin Lariche. Then the experienced French driver behind on the road is number 8 Audi, Greg Gilbert at the wheel of it. Remember, that's a car that was very badly damaged at Spa in that accident in race 2, which, irony of ironies, they'd already had a win in race 1. Way up the curb there, coming out of turn 5, is then the Audi of Benjamin Lariche. And on this lap, in fact, Greg Gilbert behind in the green and grey Audi, quicker in the first sector.
Yeah, 4/10 better than this car we're looking at the moment. Headlight out. We've seen that a few times for the Audi there of the Lariche, so not to worry, but at the moment this is our fastest car in sector 1, and you can see the curb abuse here. And talking to the drivers, they're saying the energy going through the car of those sausage curbs at 2. There's some interesting cones on the apexes of 5 and 6, almost look like roadwork cones. I expect them to get fired out the way. Lariche goes purple and 2. What can Gilbert do just behind? He's still up on the lap by a couple of tenths, but it's now ebbing and flowing purple sectors between the two Audis.
So Greg Gilbert then heading up towards the end of the lap, out of Curvoni to turn 12 to 13, and then the hairpin at the Curva del Carro, out of which now comes Benjamin Lariche, then a 1:43.8 last time for the championship leaders, to see what they can do. Already this year we've had pole positions for Audi, but none to Benjamin Lariche. Robert Consani has taken a pole position, Greg Gilbert has, Paul Petit have in that sister car, and it was Lariche the fastest, but now Gilbert goes faster again and does a 1:40.918. a tenth up. Pedro Ibrahim's BMW number 11 has gone third, and Baudouin Detou, fourth fastest in the Aston Martin. Elias Niskanen's Mercedes-AMG was fifth, but now up to fourth has gone Will Orton. 12th in the times at the moment is Hadrian David, the driver that's going well in both of the Mont Cup as well as in GT4 this year. Single-seater convert in the Toyota Supra. Charlie Hart goes second in the McLaren. Hadrian David goes quickest in the Supra.
Tight though, isn't it? Very tight, 1800ths between them. That Supra had a hard spar, got caught up in an accident in race one, which really hurt their championship fight. You can see the amount of curb being used, and there's 7 or 8 corners being heavily policed here of track limits. The drivers know those ones, but where they're not being policed, that's why you'll see the cars crossing over the white line and effectively doing a track limit as that apex cone has been removed now at 5 and 6, like expected. Another purple sector here. Just keep an eye on the timing tower. If you see a name disappear, that is because of track limits. They're going to come through thick and fast, and race control, there's no negotiation. It's a matter of fact. It's gone forever, that lap. You could not argue it at a later time.
And Josh Dynaston is one that's lost a lap. Remember, he was in the wars at Spa, crashed the car, didn't feel very well, so he was replaced for the races. Hadrian David then, his lap did stay. Greg Gilbert second, so 18 thousandths of a second is what splits those two. Third quickest is the McLaren of Charlie Hart, so you've got Toyota, Audi, McLaren, then Audi fourth, Benjamin Lariche, Aston Martin fifth, Roberto Faria, and BMW sixth, Bekke Bessler, ahead of Ricardo van der Ende. And now Benjamin Lariche to the top of the times, 1 minute 40.632. Josh Ratigan's McLaren has done the absolute best within the first sector, and as the time ticks on down, we've gone from 20 minutes to 12 and 40 on the clock. We're coming towards the end of the isolated time for the Silvers.
Yeah, it looks like Ratigan's done an extra prep lap than everyone, so maybe he's bringing those tyres in slightly slower, which they seem to be at the moment. That was right on the borderline of track limits. I think it was just okay. Lovely slide. Hart goes quickest. What can David respond with? He can't actually get any higher than fourth. This is Ratigan. This lap at the moment looking very, very strong. Could this get us to a low 1 minute 40, I think?
Let's see, Benjamin Lariche still the fastest. So you've got now Audis 1 and 2 as lap times are disappearing. Charlie Hart's had a lap taken off him. Hadrian David then is up into fourth. Over the timing line goes the McLaren fastest. Josh Ratigan goes over the timing line at 1 minute 40.310. Nicely done for the McLaren. So the Elite Motorsport car, which is of last year's silver champion, and shared with Mackenzie Cresswell, who will take over for Q2. That is fastest by 0.3 of a second, and right now you've got your top 10 all covered by under a second.
Yeah, balance looking great for this McLaren. Just a slight bit of rotation, so the rear of the car over-rotating on the way in. That means the driver has to do less turning, and that's exactly what you want in these qualifying conditions. As you go back to the Audi, it's a green sector one, but they're able to keep a good pace, but they don't seem to have that new tyre hit. They're able to do 3 lap times, almost identical so far, the Audi, which is good for the race, not great for qualifying, but still second for Lariche. And what can Gilbert do? Stays fourth.
You do, of course, have within the championship a point for each driver taking pole position. So points awarded to the car, to the 2 drivers thereof. So in other words, it is, of course, of relevance as we come towards the end of a championship season to try and get every point wrung out of it if you can. That's 812 McLaren of Charlie Hart that's been up and down the order. It's down to 8th, having lost laps for track limit. Personal best goes across the line, and Charlie Hart's lap puts him up to 4th, assuming that he hasn't exceeded track limits on that lap. So you've got Ratigan, Lariche now up to 3rd, Luc Ibanez, who's been a winner here in the past. Charlie Hart is 4th, Hadrian David's Toyota is 5th, and 6th is Greg Gilbert's Audi is Josh Ratigan, then with an absolute best and a personal best sector as well, comes up towards the timing line. He will go through. This is the car that's already on pole position on a 1 minute 40.310, and a 1 minute 40.115 is better still.
Yeah, another couple of tenths. I thought it would be a high 39 to get a front row. It's looking like that might be a bit too quick today. The higher track temps not giving the grip to the drivers. The Ford Mustang here, the #1 car through the last corner. This is where the track limit's so difficult. I think Charlie Hart from a previous shot might have lost it, and that one there will be close as well for track limits.
Nathan Van Springel then takes the checkered flag. That's the end of the silver session, if you like. Van Springel is 15th. Luc Ibanez goes over the timing line back up to second fastest, 1 minute 40.517. But Ratigan, therefore, ends Q1A, if you like, 4 tenths up the road.
Yeah, really strong lap from Ibanez here. Race 1 winner in 2024, so he knows the track. He's fast round here as well. So these cars will now box, and you can see in the background in pit lane all the Pro-Am and Am cars coming out. So we will have another 17 contenders taken to the circuit.
And there is Josh Dynaston, who is coming to the end of his session in the RAFA Racing Club McLaren. Bounces up the curb, brings all the dust onto the racetrack. Good first sector, not so good middle sector to the lap. And right now, that car is 10th in the times. He did improve last lap, in fairness to Josh Dynaston, as he comes then now up towards the end of the lap, heading down now into turn 16. This is where you've got to be careful, isn't it, not to run too wide and get onto the blue painting, because if you do, you've exceeded track limits. Dynaston takes the flag, and as he does so, doesn't improve.
No, that RAFA McLaren looking very different in balance to the Elite One. The Elite One much stiffer, looks a nicer car to drive, and hence why I would say it's on pole position, whereas the other McLarens, 8th and 10th, quite a big delta between those.
So there is the man of the moment, Josh Rattigan. Then he's taken the flag, he's taken pole by 4/10 of a second. Went quicker again on his last lap, 1 minute 40.115. So Josh Rattigan ahead of Loic Ibanez, and then Benjamin Lariche third. So you've got McLaren from Audi, sorry, I'll try this again. You've got McLaren from Mercedes AMG from Audi, then Toyota, then Audi, then BMW, McLaren, Aston Martin, McLaren. So an interesting mix, but quite a few McLarens up there. Maybe this is an aero-friendly circuit.
Yeah, and just looking at drivers heading out, in which order. So Henrik Still in the 32 Porsche will be one to watch, because obviously this will now get combined. So Rattigan is pole position, but we're only at half time. Can any of the Pro-Am cars with their fast pro drivers in get in the mix of this silver car quali?
Henrik Still has taken pole every time in Pro-Am. Every time he's driven the car, he has been fastest in his session, including at the outright pole at Paul Ricard. So yes, absolutely, the Pro-Ams, the quick pros in a Pro-Am car can most definitely mix it. Now, for the Pro-Ams, of course, the first lap's a bit messy, because not only is it their out lap and a kind of prep lap, but they've also got to be mindful of silver traffic that's backed off and he's heading for the pit lane.
Yeah, luckily it's the first session of the day, so off track isn't so dirty, but you still want to stay on the racing line. And all of these silver cars, you can see in the windscreen, that number panel. If it's blue, that means they're a silver class car, so they're all on their in lap. There's Henrik Still's teammate Joachim Bolting, looking the calmest I've seen him there. And you can actually see Dave Benson as well, engineer in the foreground. So these GT4 cars don't have the garages. They're in awnings. They have to come into pit lane and basically hijack the GT3 and GT2 garages.
Is there anything over the years that Dave Benbow has not engineered? He has been around for ever and a day, it feels like, massively experienced, and everything from the DTM to the British Touring Car Championship, now GT4 for Borissan Automotive. There with the long hair, you can see Robert Consani congratulating Benjamin Lariche for going third fastest, and Robert Consani just possibly making the point that I did get a pole, you know, at Zandvoort in my session. You didn't in yours, Benjamin. You've not yet had a pole. But hey, for Josh Rattigan, that's the second pole position of the season, because he also got a pole at Spa. Right, let's turn our attention then to the Pro-Ams and the Ams, because that now is for whom the circuit is live, and the remaining, as it already is, 6 minutes, in fact, of the session. 24 they're going through. That is the JSB Competition, Vinny Beltramelli and Nico Ferrarin Porsche. Now, that's a car that did have a win at Paul Ricard at the start of the year. This is Henrik Still with the ever colourful Porsche, and not only a candidate for a Pro-Am pole, but an outright pole as well.
Yeah, definitely. He's got the best track position here. Whole pit straight clear, so he'll work this car as hard as he can. Looks like he's definitely onto a push lap on the first fly here, avoiding those yellow sausage curbs where we saw a lot of drivers using it, flying through here. And then we've got this tricky section, hard on the brakes into 4, opening the corner up, straddling that curb so they can stay on the flat part, not braking on the serration, meaning that you get better braking efficiencies there. And then you can see the BMW so much bigger than everything else bar the Mustang really in this GT4 category.
So we're going to start to see what Henrik Still can piece together out of all of this. This is where you start to appreciate just how busy the racetrack can be. And the cars then now make that run out of Quechia at turn 8. And then the climb up towards the right-hander at the top of the circuit. Slight incline up to that point, but it's a fairly notional one. So out up the curb goes Henrik Still, and now the times start to build on the run down towards the sequence of corners from Cavoni onwards, as we were saying earlier on. Kink, corner, tighter corner, hairpin, and Henrik Still in the Porsche number 32, then on a mission to try to get yet another pole position for the W&S Motorsport team. We are, of course, having lots of lap times being cancelled for track limit offences, but now the road has suddenly got a lot quieter. All the silvers are in, so Henrik Still lets that wave go, and now it should be a clear road ahead of him. We'll see what his prep lap is going to be, if you like. 4 minutes, though. He's got to press on.
Yeah, it's not been a great lap, and actually Kronberg behind in the 30 car had been staying with him quite easily, and that's an AM car. So, yeah, 41.4. It's 15th overall. Maybe that was a semi-prep lap's the only thing. So it wasn't full push, but it was enough to get the tyre temp to where they need to be on this lap.
There is Gabriele Yelkova's Toyota Supra. That car also now heading up towards the timing line. So the Supra that's been in the wars a little bit over the last couple of seasons has got the Lotus ahead. The car of Stefano D'Aste and Alberto Nasca, who is going to be a very popular man on home soil this weekend. Stefano D'Aste at the wheel of the yellow Lotus that had a class win at Spa. That 99 Toyota Supra goes through 16th overall now. So yeah, Kronberg from Davide Meloni, from Yelkova, Henrik Still 4th of the drivers within this part of the session, but I'm sure that's going to change.
It was a mega lap from Kronberg to be faster than any of the Pro-Ams in an AMCAS class, so they've got that car fully hooked up there Porsche-wise, and is the fastest Porsche at the moment as well, as we look at this Lotus bouncing across the track there, and this is what the drivers need to contend with. You need a car that's great over these curbs, but then not too soft with the fast-flowing nature of the circuit. Engineers looking at those timing screens, trying to see if they can help their drivers, which sector they pour in. Is there some space they need to find? And that's always the problem in qualifying. If you're not in the perfect space and you're compromised, that's time gone. And the life window of these tyres when they're at their peak is so limited.
So this is the look from turn 10 down to the kink at 11. Lotus ahead of Toyota, ahead of BMW. But the car's getting bigger as well, aren't they? Not only does the racetrack change, but the shape of the cars. You go from the low-line Lotus to the slightly bigger Supra to the touring car style BMW. As you look down the straight, the cars get bigger and bigger in the queue. Now Victor Bouveng's BMW has gone up to 10th overall, so that is the next of those out of Pro-Am to keep an eye on, and 10th overall illustrates the point that yes, you can certainly mix it. Well, you can if you keep your lap time, because he's just disappeared back down to 37th. I was going to say there are 38 of them on the circuit, or there will be in total, and of them Julien Ripper has only now done a lap time, so Bouveng goes down to 38th. Right, let's try again. So it is still Max Kronberg then the fastest from this session, but Davide Meloni here is up to second now, 86,000 shy.
Yeah, it's amazing their track limits lost and the drivers will always have an excuse, but now with the cameras it really is a matter of fact.
And perhaps here it's one of the tougher places, because with the MotoGP round being here, it's very much a bike circuit, very low curbs, so as not to risk a hazard for motorbike racers. Low curbs mean people are going to push and overstep the mark. Victor Bouveng has gone through and he's now up to 8th overall, so that lap, all being well, will stay, as there Josh Rattigan was looking on with Steph Bush from the Elite Motorsport team at the data with the McLaren engineers. So Bouveng 8th, Beltramelli 13th. No, Bouveng has lost that lap. That's 2 in a row he's lost, and he's running out of not only time but tyre life. Yeah, you can see something hanging off the bottom of this 2 Porsche. I think it's the brake ducting on its front left corner. Should be okay, but the team will be worried of why that's fallen off in such fewer laps, and it will be the curb strikes just making things loose. But in a race, losing a brake duct would be a huge issue around here. Very hard on its brakes. You can just see that ducting. The teams use a different name for it, but the ducting pipe there hanging loose, and the team will need to address that before the race. So Edwin Hellstein comes over the line now in number 2 and goes up to 17th. This is number 60 BMW that we're looking at now. That's the Razzoon Northern Racing car of Gustavo Xavier. He shares it with Honda Erdem, but it's Gustavo Xavier at the wheel of it. We saw it at Spa. Comes then now up through the hairpin, turn 14, and heading towards the end of the lap. So right now, the best of the Pro-Ams, Stanislav Safronov's Aston Martin, 11th overall. I'm still a bit mystified as to why Henrik Still is not doing better. Well, part of the answer is he's in the pit lane, and that's where he's going to stay. So it's been a really duff session, as 7th overall goes Gustavo Xavier onto pole position in Pro-Am. But Henrik Still, I just wonder whether there's a problem. There he is, giving way early, effectively, to Joachim Bolting, but that's the most un-Hendrik Still-like session. First time this year he's not taken pole position.
Yeah, they have an all-white rear bumper, so they've obviously had contact with a car or a barrier in testing, I would suggest. And I'll go and get the info on that, but maybe that's some legacy there, because they've definitely had to do some repair work. And yeah, this is our highest placed car of the session, the Pro-Am car. Xavier there doing a mega job, but Safronov in shot at the moment, still pushing. The checkered flag is out, and I just wonder if the track temps coming up in this session made the second part of quali harder than the Silvers. Safronov pushing to the line. Where can he get himself to? He goes up to 10th, and Monica and the Ginetta 9th. So we've got 3 Pro-Ams inside the top 10.
Yeah, Gustavo Xavier then 7th overall, fastest of Pro-Am, ahead of Hugo Mochica, and then Stanislav Safronov 3rd, Vinny Beltramelli 4th, Gabriele Elkova 5th, and Stefano Daste in 6th. Checkered flag to complete Q1, fast lane open rapidly for Q2 to get underway, as we have there the cars making their in-lap. That is Alberto Nasca, banging his head on the Pirelli rubber. A bit frustrated about something. Stefano Daste, I thought, did a pretty decent job again. That Lotus has really come on a pace over the course of the year, and that win at Spa in class underlined the potential.
Yeah, definitely. They've worked very hard. The PB Racing team are getting some performance out of that, as we see the 96 BMW on the dust, running wide, and then this is where it gets really slippy. You can see the opposite lock. There's bodywork falling off, so I imagine we've clattered one of the cones or bollards, and great super slow-mo. Front right locking up as well. There's so much energy involved, and the car almost bucking left to right as well. It looks like they need to stiffen up those roll bars to stop that bucking left to right. Needs a bit more compliance there.
So the car being fought through the corner, and Vasily Vladikin getting to the end of the session. Right, Elite Motorsport ready to get the second qualifying session underway, because very shortly the lights will go green. Hendrik Still, we understand, is a bit mystified as to why the pace wasn't there. He admits to a couple of mistakes, but no more than that, so a bit of head scratching going on. Right, in the meantime, the timing screen is cleared, and that means that we are set for Q2. The Elite Motorsport team there, like many teams, having had a busy few weeks with a domestic GT race last week and also single-seaters. Josh Rattigan fastest then in Q1 from Luc Ibanez, Benjamin Lariche 3rd, from Hadrian David, Greg Gilbert 5th, and Beke Bachelor 6th fastest. Gustavo Xavier 7th from Ricardo van der Ende, then Stanislav Safronov, and the top 10 rounded out by Charlie Hart. Gustavo Xavier taking a first pole position of the season in Pro-Am, and the best of the AMs, Max Kronberg, and that is a 3rd pole of the year for him in a pretty impressive 19th overall. You can see how busy it is. The Lotus, though, only 37, so Stefano Daste having problems, ending up behind Ajit Kumar's Porsche. Victor Bouveng 35th in the end, having lost 2 flying laps. So it's a rather jumbled grid. There are people out of position, which is going to make it interesting, I think, when we go racing. Yeah,
Daste must have lost 2 of his laps, because we saw it on track looking good and fast. And again, just the penalty of track limits there. And it's a big penalty with a 38-car grid, isn't it? You now start 37th place, and that's going to make it very difficult in race 1.
It is indeed, as then now the drivers are on track, ready for the first part of Q2. So you get lots of mileage on the Thursday in the test, and on Friday with the free practice and the pre-qualifying periods. And then when it's the actual qualifying session, you've got to get it turned on quickly. 20 minutes as a session, but only 10 minutes for the 2 segments, if you like. So Silvers get 10 isolated minutes, then there's that blend lap, and then the other 10 minutes given over to the Pro-Ams and the AMs. People busily working to try and get the warmth into the tyres here.
Yeah, and it's such a fine balance getting these tyre prep right. And as a driver, you need to commit quite early to either 1 prep lap, so you outlap push, or 2 prep laps. If you go halfway between it, you compromise all of it. And it does look like the quicker strategy in Q1 was to do 2 prep laps. So you've done your outlap, you're going to do another chill lap. And I think that's where the elite McLaren of Rattigan was strong. His first push lap was only a 1:57, so 17 seconds off. But it seemed to allow the tyre to last a bit longer and give it a better peak. Let's see if that's a strategy learned from any others.
Can you actually hurt the tyre by bringing it in too soon, and in what sense?
Massively, because if you push too hard, the surface, the compound gets hot, but the pressure isn't there.
Right.
So the tyre will stay soft, so it just wallows around, but the tyre grip's like, well, I'm ready, and it feels like it wants to pull the tyre off the rim, and you just don't get the stability. And then when the stability's there, the compound's gone off. So you need both pressure and tyre surface temp at the same time, and they don't warm up at the same rate. That's the problem.
So let us see who is going to come out on top then, as you look there at Alex Papadopoulos, winner here last year with Ibanez, and he's managed to get himself some clear track space, hasn't he, in that NM Racing Team Mercedes. Others getting ready for the second part of qualifying. The Lotus will be set ready, and so also the other cars from Pro-Am and Am.
And interestingly, this second session, which the Lotus will take part in 7 minutes, 5 seconds, they get a slight advantage because those brakes are so hot now, 500-600 degrees. They radiate into the rims. They can actually bleed some of the tyre pressure out just before they go out. The minimum tyre pressure, 1.4 bar, stipulated by Pirelli, can never be below that. So they will go. Jodie Fanning on the pit wall there. Bit of a death symbol there, the old throat slit. Maybe no radio communications or something. But anyway, we get the Audi of Paul Petit pushing to the line. It's actually going to be a very quick first lap straight into the 41s, and it could be that yellow flag in that sector 2. Is that the problem?
Yes, there's the elite McLaren, so that's the problem. And Mackenzie Cresswell on his out lap has come to a halt. Now, Gerald Doval, the race director, will give him, say, 30 seconds or so to try to get that car fired up again. But otherwise, it's going to be a red flag, isn't it, to get that out of the way?
And who does this advantage throw to? It's the car's already done a lap. So cars now will be praying not for a red flag, because as soon as that happens, you lose it. Double wave yellows. There's no power to the car at the moment. Yeah, red flag. Yeah. So at the moment, we've only had 8 cars do a lap, and really only 2 of those representative. So Cresswell is more crestfallen, isn't he? And that was the death slit, wasn't it, to the throat there. Interesting to see what's gone wrong so early in that session.
Because you've gone from pole position, fastest car, to no power.
There's a lot of heat coming out of that car. There's a lot of heat coming out of all the cars, but you can just see the heat haze coming out the back of that engine there. I wonder if that's the issue. McLaren heavily supporting all their teams here. Saw Drew McDonald earlier in pit lane. He was chief development engineer of this car, so they will try and work out that problem. But now they've caused the red flag. They're going to lose their best lap, aren't they? So even if they get going again, they are massively, massively compromised in that regard. Dynamically, car looks fine. All 4 tyres seems to be sat square. Again, you can just see the heat haze coming out the car. It's a very hot car. It's a hot turbo, so the turbo sits inside of the V6 there. There's actually a chimney to help get that heat out. And I remember driving this car early in development. You'd go and have a look in the engine bay, instantly lose your eyebrows. Sort of 800-900 degrees of hot gas coming out the top of it. Marshall, looking underneath, can't see anything dripping. But that is worrying in terms of the sporadic nature of that failure.
Yeah, and it's been an up and down season, hasn't it, for Elite? And they kind of had this last year. They, if you remember, had 2 cars in the championship last year, one of which was good. That was the Rattick and Leben car. And then you had the second car, which always seemed to have the bad luck. So here we are again. Poor old Elite with a pole position. And then, within 15 minutes, the car grinds to a halt.
Yeah, I'm just trying to speculate. The only thing with it being hot, potentially in the fuel rail, that fuel gets very hot when it's sat there, and it actually vaporizes and it doesn't combust anymore. So maybe it's just started to cough and sputter. It almost needs to cool down to let that fuel go back to the state it should be in. But yeah, strange to just conk out that early on.
And the recovery vehicle that I thought was there has now fled. So what's all this about? Does it need a lift? Does it need to be picked up rather than towed back? Anyway, the drivers come back to the pit lane. There is Robert Consani, and yeah, it needs lifting by the look of it. So the plot thickens. Why could it not be towed? Is something seized in the transmission?
Yeah, that's the most likely option. No clutch in that car. It's a fully automatic gearbox, like a DSG in the road car version. So when it locks, there's nothing the driver can do to get it out of gear. Maybe a brake is seized on. Just you would normally see some tyre marks for that, and just the way it stopped doesn't look like it's been instant. But yeah, that's going to be another 5 or 6 minutes. Looking to the rear left of the car. sometimes you see finger trouble, don't you? The mechanics not getting a wheel on right, but it doesn't look like that from this angle, certainly. Gives the teams another chance now for them to bleed some more tyre pressure out at least. But I do think this is a relatively big advantage for cars that got a lap time in early, of which it was really only Cassani and Signoretti anywhere in the mix.
Well, that's Mackenzie Cresswell, and that is Josh Rattigan. So frustration for everybody. Josh having taken a pole position, and then, as I say, within 15 minutes, the car having this problem. Mackenzie Cresswell, new to GT racing this season, coming from GB3. And the rest of the field await the resumption of the session. But it's taking, because of the nature of this, quite a long time to retrieve the car. So having had some sort of mechanical or transmission-related failure. Everybody else there in the pit lane, the Anthony Debarn, Jean-Mathieu Leandri, BMW ready to go back out.
What it does do, of course, is with another outlap needed of a 10-minute session, you've got 2 outlaps in 10 minutes, so you've already lost nearly 4 minutes. And Rattigan maybe not getting the idea of GT racing there, coming from single-seaters. Still looks quite happy, and that's because he's on pole position. But I don't think it's quite sunk in yet that they're probably going to be starting last in race 2.
And, of course, there's very little time to find out whether the problem is solved before he starts on pole position this afternoon, other than driving to the grid. There is Joachim Bolting getting ready to go when it's his session in the 32 Porsche. All smiles as ever under the crash helmet. But right now, we have effectively 6 minutes of Q1 to go. It's going to be a sort of 1, maybe 2 lap scramble.
Yeah, exactly. Going to have 4 minutes of the session remaining once they get going and finish that outlap. So it's going to be very hard for these drivers to get it turned on and get those tyres back up to the temperature they need. See Daniel Nielsen there getting some coaching on the fly, and that's the important part of Pro-Am racing, is always having your AM. Helston there was the fastest Pro-Am car, his teammate, just trying to help out. So again, always nice when speak the same language, both Swedish drivers in that number 2 Porsche.
And a bit of air being wafted into the car because they're hot. There's Mackenzie Cresswell, who's being brought back with the marshal, back to the team in the paddock. The car will be brought to the paddock rather than the pit lane. Now, let's go to the pit lane as you see a wheel off the car there. Alex Legui is in the pit lane for us this weekend with Henrik Still first up.
Hello, sir. Hello. Wouldn't be right if I didn't have a conversation with you. First things first, what's going on here? Why have you got a white bumper?
No, I mean, Joe made yesterday a little mistake in the pre-qualifying, and yeah, so he just destroyed the bumper, and then we need to change to the white version, but I think for the next race it will be painted.
So, is that why the car wasn't running so well during that session? It's unusual for you not to be on the top.
No, to be honest, not. I mean, yesterday, for sure, I had not the driving time which we expected. I had not the quali sim what we wanted to do because, yeah, I missed the driving time. But anyway, yeah, I was struggling a bit today. It is definitely not what we expected. We tried some things at the car. It was not working out. And, you know, it's so tough here. It's so close. If something is not 100% on the point, it's very easy to, yeah, to lose a couple of tenths and you are not there anymore where you need to be.
What's the biggest challenge that Misano throws out?
I mean, the temperature is crazy. It's super hot in the cars, also for the quali simulation or for the qualifying now. To be honest, we just have on the peak of the tire just 1 lap, so that means we need to have a proper warm-up procedure and bring it on the point, because it's yeah, the tire is dropping already to around 5 tenths after the first lap. So it means yeah, you need to be really on the point here.
Yeah, good. All right, well, fingers crossed for a better session. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Henrik Still gives way to Joachim Bolting, and we are back in business. Now, just the car's going down to the end of the pit lane, the fast lane open. We had seen, just before we heard from Henrik Still, the McLaren, as it was being lifted, a wheel lying by the side of the road. So that kind of, and again, we're speculating, but it suggests obviously that the wheel was loose, that it was too risky to bring it back because all the load was going to go onto that side of the car through the next 3 corners. Therefore, stop the car. That's why it couldn't be towed, or they were reluctant to tow it, because the wheel would have dropped off.
Yeah, I think as a driver, you'd try and risk getting it back to try and fix it. I'd say I'd be wrong with that statement because of how quickly it fell off as soon as it was lifted. Would it have made it any further? I don't know, but now that's their qualifying done, just purely on the time. Even if they could get it back as the door pops back open,
But just going back to that theory, yeah, okay, it might have fallen off on the remaining corners, but it got as far as the exit of turn 10. So it's 4.2 kilometres long. It had done, let's say, over half at least of the lap, but many of those were left-handers.
Yeah, exactly. As a driver, I'll be thinking, I've got a lot of rights here to push it back on.
Yeah.
I just need to nurse it through 15, and that's the last corner anyway before pit lane, so I'll definitely get back. But yeah, the team may be scared of attracting a penalty for a wheel coming loose from race control as we go back to green very efficiently. The 78 car just off track, but the clock already ticking, of course, and these drivers need to get on with it.
So it is going to be a bit harum-scarum. Hendrick still saying that you've only really got one flying lap, which is what Joe was suggesting a little bit earlier. And again, look, Team Speed Car getting the two Audis out early doors. There is the Paul Petit entry, rebuilt after that monster accident at Spa. Petit was on pole position at Paul Ricard. Greg Gilbert in that same car rather had a pole at Zandvoort. So no, it's quick. The BMWs, and they're normally cars that go well around here, out on track. Jagish Gedich drives 11, 12 ought to be Gabriele Piana now. It is. And Robert Consonni's 141.323 is the first lap of any note. Big slide there by Gedich, who did a 47.9 before the stoppage. And again, you've got drivers weaving around to get the warmth into the rubber. Number 8, Audi, Paul Petit's car, brand new chassis in fairness for the weekend. If you saw the Spa second race, you'll know just how much damage was done, and it was beyond repair, confirmed by the team. So it is a new chassis, and therefore that test yesterday and Thursday, very important indeed. Number 1, Ford Mustang, Michael Haverantz, now at the wheel of it, taking over from Nathan Van Springel in the Grunt & Go Mustang. They sound fantastic, these cars. And the Academy Motorsport one, of course, the double winner early season, Eric Evans and Marco Signoretti winning in France and Holland.
Yeah, and getting held up by the Aston. I thought he had his indicator on, looked like he was letting him go. Now the Mustang suddenly needs to check up and try and find some space as the drivers for the second part of this quali pensively wait.
Not all of them. One team have got a bit caught out by the red flag. Number 97, which is Mats Olsen, has gone out in the wrong session. So the team saying to race control, we're coming in, we'll sit there, sorry, our problem, sorry. But seeing a load of cars going out, possibly not being on top of the red flag. So they thought, oh, better go. Cars are going out, but realising it was the wrong session. So the 97 BMW will have to come back in. I think also the Brunhagen's Toyota is in the same situation. However, the Audis push on, and there you've got then Paul Petit. Let's see what he can do. It would be calmer in a sense, wouldn't it, if this could bounce back with a victory after the big disappointment and that big accident that the team had at Spa.
Yeah, and we see these Audis now running in reverse order to Q1. Do you think that's like F1? You see the lead car, and then they have to swap to even out the effect of the slipstream. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but at the moment, Consani's on a much better lap in the second place Audi at the moment. This could be something very fruity. I think this is going to be a low 40 straight off the bat, and they will get time for 2 more laps. They will get the checkered flag with 10 minutes remaining on the clock.
So here they come then. You've got not only absolute bests coming from Robert Consani, and a sideways Paul Petit bounces over the curb, but Benjamin Lassen's BMW doing purples as well. Over the timing line then goes Paul Petit, goes fastest, but for how long? He does an absolute best last sector. Then Robert Consani goes quicker by 0.8 of a second. Wow. 0.891 faster. But Benjamin Lassen here in the BMW, wide up the curb, coming out of turn 16, heading towards the timing line, will break the beam, and Lassen goes second. In fact, splits the Audis. Benjamin Lassen does a lap just under 4/10 slower than Consani. So Robert Consani doing a really fine job as you look now at number 15, which is Alex Papadopoulos, winner here last year. And he's now making that push up through turn 13.
Yeah, car looking good for him at the moment. This could be a lap for the top 6. Aston Miller in 4th. He was just in front of Lassen on track. Lassen's done a purple sector 1. Papadopoulos not using much of the entry curb there. Most cars seem to be opening up the last couple of corners. He does that at the last corner at 16. Stays legal there. Consani's lap, interestingly, 3 thousandths faster than the Q1 time of Rattigan. And Papadopoulos does go top 6, 4th with that lap, 141.2.
seeing how Gabriele Piana is getting on, 7th in the BMW, that's all, as now with 1.5 minutes, the fast lane opens for the Pro-Ams and the AMs. Piana is a double winner here in the past, and at the moment 7th fastest, so there's more to come. Benjamin Lessen again trying to build the lap together. Absolute best first sector, personal best second sector. There is a little bit of traffic up the road though for the Grunt and Go BMW. It's the 81 McLaren, is it not, that he's going to have to think about. Aston Miller at the wheel of it. Here is Lessen then through 13 into the hairpin at 14.
Lessen's lost his previous lap, hasn't he? He's now not got a lap time, so this one needs to count. His next one will be his last. Luckily for him, it looks like this lap would have been quicker than the previous one deleted. It was that last corner, I think, he went too wide at. Looked good this time, though. Over
the timing line and goes 4th fastest, so that's good-ish, really, rather than good. I mean, it's there or thereabouts, to use that ghastly cliche that says you're sort of good but not good enough, really. I'd have thought Lessen would have gone better than that, but maybe he was being careful just to stay within the track limits. Here is Alex Papadopoulos, only 7th at the moment with that Mercedes AMG, the American driver then now heading up towards the end of the lap. Good first sector, but he's lost quite a bit in the middle.
Yeah, tyres starting to drop off. Now it's going to be close to see if he can actually squeeze another lap. He's got to get across the line in the next 10 seconds. It is really nip and tuck if he's going to get that. Does he need it? Is this lap going to be strong enough to lift him into the top 3 rows of the grid? And I think he's just going to squeeze another lap by half a second.
That's very, very tight indeed. But he went across the line 6th fastest for Papadopoulos. And that was partly because of another lap time disallowed for Clement Zeiler, the Swiss driver. Also losing a lap now, number 1, which is Michael Haverens. And on it goes. Number 12, Gabriele Piana, only 10th. Now, Piana is heading up to the end of the lap here, and he's done 2 personal bests, so there should be an improvement on the cards. Piana, massively experienced GT4 driver, specialises in BMWs. He's also on GT3 duty, so he's got a lot of mileage to do over the course of the weekend, switching from one type of car to another. And there's the checkered flag for him. So Piana 10th at the start of the lap, breaks the beam 7th, so there was an uplift, as it were, but not by much.
No, the BMW struggling in the middle sector, straight line speed-wise, as everyone now pushing to the line. Katsani, class of his own, pole position by over 6/10, and he did another lap that was 40.1. So he has really got that car hooked up, as we see some cars bailing on that last lap, trying to save some of the tyre life.
Everybody else comes pouring over the line. Jan Duran, 8th fastest in the Toyota Supra. An improver at the end. But it's a pretty happy team speed car with a 1-2 then. And Robert Consani it is that is the fastest. And that means that it is a 2nd pole of the season for Robert Consani. In terms of pole positions, it's 2-0, isn't it, Roberto Benjamin Lariche, his co-driver?
Yeah, he's doing a good job, and we thought that's what he was saying in the interlude between the 2 sessions. And I think the Audi just looking so strong, but that Paul Petit car, the 8 car, was a whole new car we're hearing from Spa. I'm not surprised the size of the shunt as we look at the drivers looking quite happy with themselves, and quite rightly so.
I'm still slightly mystified as to why there aren't more Audis. I mean, in fairness, we have had 1 extra car this year, the 2nd speed car entry in silver of Petit and Gilbert. But considering that, okay, it's not the youngest car, but they can still deliver, why aren't more teams running them?
Yeah, the support Audi are pulling out of, I guess, is a worry for those teams, but it is a very quick car, very capable, and it always seems to be in the window, doesn't it? It's not particularly strong at anything, but it does everything so well, and that's exactly what you want from a balanced and performance race car.
Yeah, it's never weak and it's never the standout, but it just delivers. Plug and play, that car. Right, the second part of the session then is already underway. You can see Joachim Bolting, you can see all these delectable Cayman 718s getting themselves together, including the car that has got the charismatic Joachim Bolting at the wheel heading the queue, and that did have an accident in testing, hence the rear not looking quite as the rest of the livery will be. I think it'll grow over the course of the weekend, but Joachim Bolting here, as ever, a man to watch. Now, pole positions in Pro-Am, we talked about Henrik Still being the man to watch. Well, in terms of the drivers on track now, keep an eye on Alberto Nasca, because he's had a couple of poles in the Lotus.
Yeah, and he's been very quick in the last few races. I feel like his form's getting better as they improve that Lotus ever more. And he's going to probably be the second most popular person here at Misano this weekend, isn't he? After Valentino Rossi, of course, racing in GT World Challenge this weekend with us.
Bit hesitant there coming out of the corner, but up towards the end of the lap comes then Joachim Bolting. Henrik still being rather cagey about who put the car off in terms of doing the damage. It's tempting to suggest it was the AM, not the Pro, but that might be unfair. Up towards the timing line then comes Joachim Bolting. That's Alberto Nasca then. They, as a team, not just him, but Stefano D'Aste, who is our Lotus preparer, it's his company that looks after the car, they've done a really good job of turning this into a very quick car in a short space of time.
Yeah, they had that problem at Spa with it, but pace-wise, car very good as we ride on board through turn 16 this last corner. The exit is hard to keep legal. He does do that. Nasca shifting up to 4th gear on the line. What can he do lap time-wise? Good enough for 16th at the moment, 42.1. Expect him to find another half a second or so.
But he is fastest in this group. So Nasca ahead of Cindy Goudet in the Toyota. That is number 7, which is now Alexander Weintraub. So it's got the transponder in the wrong place, but it is Alexander Weintraub at the wheel of number 7 going through. That was a quick car in the hands of Safronov in Q1. So overall, Consani, Petit, Aston Miller 3rd, Benjamin Lassen 4th, Yagish Gedic 5th and 6th, Alex Papadopoulos, Piana 7th, Duran 8th, then 9th fastest. It is Mark Kastelich with the Mercedes AMG in the top 10, rounded out by Ruben Del Sart. Weintraub coming up towards the end of the lap. And as he does so, the one car we know we're not going to get anything out of is 78 Mackenzie Cresswell. The only thing that's going to save them is if others get put behind because they lose lap times.
Yeah, they're still going to be outside the top 30, aren't they? Already at this point, they're 34th. And yeah, that is going to be a brutal race too.
Yeah, they're nearly out of Misano as a town. I mean, they're that far back on the grid. Binoculars provided for the lights. So there you've got Cindy Goudet hustling on. Cindy Goudet going well here. 2nd at the moment from those cars that we've had on track within this segment of qualifying. That Toyota Supra then on the run now towards the end of the lap. Cindy, 6 times a French hill climb champion before coming into circuit racing last year in the GT4 European Series. The long-nosed Toyota Supra then heading up towards the timing line, breaks the beam, and Cindy Goudet up a couple of places then, 17th overall. The best out of this group at the minute is Anthony Debarn, a very quick AM, and his BMW ahead of Cindy Goudet. Alberto Nasca is 3rd. Here you've got number 27 Porsche then. That's the car of Alessandro Tudiska. Into the championship. Go on,
yeah,
sorry.
So both new drivers, the previous drivers, Dufay and Dietrich, have now stepped up to GT3, so they've done well to fill this car so efficiently, and an okay lap to go 25th overall at the moment.
And that is a sideways Anthony Debarn. Real Tokyo Drift style that, as he goes through Quechia, which is the long turn 8 corner that, as I say, just takes you up that slight rise towards 9 and 10. First part of the hairpin, then turn 10, the second element of it, but he's backed out of the lap. That's done that set of tyres no good whatsoever.
No, I don't know if the tyre had already dropped off and he was just throwing everything at it and throwing the barn door at it, trying to make a lap time stick, or is he now going to back off and go for another push? But great lap so far.
So Anthony Debarn then down to 18th overall. Now we have Thibaut Mojica, the best of the Pro-Ams, with the car being 12th overall. And the Ginetta, that is, going nicely. There it is. You can see it coming towards us. That was another car that was damaged at Spa, wasn't it? But they've done a good job to rebuild, and with good pace as well. So Mojica coming up towards the end of the lap here.
Yeah, damage was their own doing, so less sympathy needed for the 51 car. The sole Ginetta this weekend, we saw a second entry as that Toyota kicks up the gravel. Now makes a big issue for Modica, and that's the last thing you need as a driver in the final part. He's got to lunge because his next lap will be compromised if he doesn't get past the 55 Supra of Brunhagen, and that's really hurt him for 2 laps now, and the frustration will be building massively in that Ginetta because it was still a strong lap at a 51.5. What could have that have been? I think that would have been a 140. That would have put him inside the top 5 cars overall, and that is an awful turn of luck for the Ginetta.
So flag is imminent. 2 more minutes. That's all on the clock.
And this BMW, just as a general conversation, not this one, but the BMW GT4, not strong in Sector 2 at all. From turn 6 through to turn 10, just seems to be losing 5 to 6 tenths. And again, another lockup. We've seen 2 BMWs do that now there. So the car not looking perfect around this Misano circuit, but very strong in Sector 1. And I think that must be down to the curb it can use and the low-end torque of that BMW M4 GT4.
So you're looking at the BM in the hands of senior now, Paolo Meloni, coming up towards the end of the lap. Let's get him across the line first of all. 36th he was, up to 16. That's a big, big improvement. Whereas Alberto Nasca did a very nice first sector, but seems to have lost a big amount of time in the middle. Yeah,
same as the BMW, isn't it? Sector 1 seems to be good. Go on board. Let's have a balance check here. Looks okay through corner exit. How does the car get in? Again, looks slightly nervous on rear. Now got to get the car over to the right. Use the bit of the curb on the right. Smash the curb on the left. Open this corner up. Straddle the curb. Not riding the apex curb well there. Straddles it nicely, Nasca here. Smash. And then don't use too much. The rear of the car giving up. I hope that was legal for him. He's pushing to the line. He's going to get one more lap. But yeah, the rear tyre definitely dropping up to 10th now for Nasca and the fastest in Pro-Am.
So the flag has just under half a minute. You can see the clock ticking on down, 25, 24, 23 seconds as Nasca hustles on. Ajit Kumar, meanwhile, in the Porsche. He's the slowest of those that have done a time. But again, this is yet another new venue for him. It looks quick, actually, to the eye. You're on board with the Indian actor now coming up towards the timing line. Goes through, breaks the beam. And that lap for Ajit Kumar, a 45.4, I'm afraid, slightly down on what he did earlier. Only by 100th, so no improvement.
Yeah, we saw this at Spa when we rode on board. He's just quite nervous with his hands. Look at all the micro adjustments he's making. He's not sure how much front end grip he's got, so he's trying to feel it through the wheel, and that naturally then unsettles the car. You want to turn in with one constant radius, bang the lock in, take the lock off, full throttle, go. And at the moment, in his infancy of his racing career, he's still trying to learn what the car is saying to him.
So we have the flag out as you ride down towards Quechia then with Ajit Kumar. Hard on the brakes, down through the gears, and this is a long left.
And he's not maximising entries either, so he needs to open these corners up. We say that a lot, and it's a bit of a throwaway comment as a racing driver. What does that mean? You open up, you try and make the angle as acute as possible so you can carry more speed because the corner effectively isn't as sharp. And if you give a metre here and just caught the limiter as well there on an upshift, and that then hurts you all the way down this long, long back straight. So there's just all these little nuances of driving a race car that you have to learn, and it doesn't come overnight. And that is the most frustrating part for any successful person, and that's why AMs love motorsport. They don't understand it in a night, and that's why they come back for more.
So Ajit Kumar comes up towards the end of the lap, the end of the session. Everybody else coming over the line, taking the checkered flag, and lots of talking points, but one is the up and down fortunes of the number 78 McLaren. So research to be done over the next few hours to get to the bottom of the problem for all of us. Up towards the timing line comes Ajit Kumar, and as he goes through that lap is a 46.1, I'm afraid a little bit slower.
He has gained a position though, because
yes.
Maloney has lost his lap to track limits. This was the board car we were on board before Kumar, running very, very wide, and this is where we saw that super kick up the gravel on the exit as well. Great super slow-mo, non-symmetrical wheel colour, which is bad for my OCD there, and I assume they've buckled a rim in testing. I've had to just grab a black one out of their spare parts, but not a bad session from Nasca there. It was relatively up and down, track limits lost, but ended up 15th, third in class.
As there, the field will come back towards the pit lane, including the number 20 BMW, that car in the hands of Lucas Sugliano for Q2. So it is pole position for Robert Consani, and Robert is with Alex in the pits.
Well, you're determined to extend that silver lead even more here in Misano. That was a very nice qualifying session for you. Audi's obviously feeling strong.
Yeah, I'm happy because I make the pole position, so it's the best result ever. It's the second time last year I make the pole position also. It's difficult because you start and after one lap you have the red flag and you need to be concentrated during the restart. It's not easy, but I do it. I'm happy.
How tricky will it be to convert it to a win here?
I hope score a maximum point because I play the championship and not the race, so we need to score a maximum point for keep the lead.
Good. Nicely done.
Bye-bye.
So bravo, Robert Consini taking pole position in the end by over 0.6 of a second and from the sister car. So let's have a look at the order then. Robert Consini fastest for the second race of the weekend from Paul Petit, and then after the Audi 1-2 it is McLaren third, Aston Miller ahead of Benjamin Lassen's BMW, another BMW fifth, the Vyagish Gedic, and then sixth fastest the Mercedes of Alex Papadopoulos, going better. This seems to be a circuit that suits him. Gabriele Piana seventh from Jan Duran, another of the Mercedes AMGs next, Mark Kastelich, and then the best Aston 10th for Ruben Del Sart. Callum Davis 11th ahead of Thibaut Mojica, Clement Seiler and Michael Loboda, with Alberto Nasca 15th fastest. Thibaut Mojica quickest in Pro-Am from Loboda and then Nasca. And if you find 21st quickest BMW, you get to the best of the AMs. Anthony Debarn ahead of Philippe Talamy, and then Daniel Bickler is the third of the AMs. No time recorded by number 78, Mackenzie Cresswell, having those dramas on the outlap effectively. So that car grinding to a halt, and we'll have to start at the very back of the grid. It's going to be a difficult second race tomorrow for the Elite Motorsport team. GT4 then will race today and tomorrow, and the first race for the cars is going to be at 1:45 local time this afternoon, and then they race again tomorrow at 11:40. So daylight races for the GT4 teams. Qualifying in the GT4 European Series was always going to be busy, and with the session split to allow the Silvers the track time on their own and then the Pro-Ams and AM cars their isolated session, it was the Silvers first on track, as it was an impressive Q1 by Josh Raskin, the reigning silver champion, able to push and indeed able to make sure that that was the quickest car in the 10-minute period that was afforded to the two divisions. Also looking good, Gustavo Xavier, who was on target for a class pole position in Pro-Am. First time Hendrik Still has not been fastest. Then it was time to get a new set of boots onto the cars and get ready for the second session. It was stopped early after the McLaren of now Mackenzie Cresswell ground to a halt leaving turn 10. Others, though, were going nicely, including the Josh Dynasson and Aston Miller McLaren. But in the end, an Audi 1-2 with Robert Consini taking the top time from Greg Gilbert. The second pole of the year for the Team Speed car in the hands of Robert Consini, with Thibaut Mojica taking Pro-Am pole in the Ginetta. So the scene is set for race 1. We'll be on air at 1:45 local time with the build-up for race 1 of the GT4 European Series.